let's establish a quorum. Back here, Loris, Marissa,
Here.
Lynn,
Here.
Julie,
Here.
and here. All right, you're good. Do we have any public comments?
If anyone wants to speak at this time here.
Okay, good. All right. Okay, so this says approval of short-term rental permit, but then it also talks about new business. So I guess for the open public hearing, is there anybody to talk about this?
I would open the public hearings, and then once you talk about close it and then go to the meeting. Hardly know, I don't think you're gonna get any comments, so go ahead.
Right. Okay, so is anybody here to talk about the new short-term rental on like Casita at 850 Cherry Street? Okay, we'll close public hearing and we will go to the regular meeting. So let's talk about short-term rental. So anybody?
Listening. Is the owner or the applicant here?
Right here.
So are you gonna present? Or
So
you may answer.
I'll be honest with you, I was out all last week, so I don't know much other than the fact I drove by it. And it looks like it could be a short-term rental, and we looked at the map, and there's nothing in that block. So there's no problem with the 10% rule. So that's the extent of my, other than there's no real issue with the group.
And my only other question was, I noticed one bedroom had occupancy of 4. How will the other 2 people be occupying this
We have
space?
a.
Can you come up here?
So we have a queen in the bedroom, and then it typically maybe like for 2 little kids, but it's like a little futon couch that will be able to kind of go down. We have extra clothes and blankets in the closet area.
Thank you.
I think it's like let me decide. My concern was from the outside that it does look like it needs some work. And I just remember one of the council members making comment about condition and looking from the outside, I wondered like, would I rent this myself? She said she'd rent it for like $80 to $90 a night, but you go inside and it's nice. So, and then she said that if they could get some income on it through the rentals, they would look at repairing it. And they have made improvements since last month, since I've driven by it. They stripped the cedar post. So, I don't know who went.
So the reason why there's an ordinance, and the reason why you have to recommend approval and then the council approves it is to make sure that there are things such as, are there other units nearby, those sort of things. The permitting process will go through us, and then the fire marshal will make sure that they meet certain requirements. So it is to say, it may not be necessarily ready right now, but they have to go to the planning commission and the council first before they get actual from
Absolutely.
So are you Gonzalez? Yes, ma'am. Are you an owner on the deed?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to just question real quick whether or not it's necessary to force people that are wanting to get a permit to stand in front of a group of people publicly and plead their case. It seems a little invasive. And is that really the status quo that we're gonna set from here on out?
I think that was the ordinance was written.
I disagree.
So I'm going to answer that. The answer is, I, as city administrator, came before council and asked that very question and said, hey, if it meets all the requirements, does action need to go to council? They answered yes. So
The council made that decision.
The council made a decision, not the administrator.
Sounds like it meets all the requirements. I don't see any reason why not.
No, I agree, but my comment just on that is I think that one short-term rental where it had all those neighbors had come, like, it was important that
In those
applicant.
situations, yeah.
And the only other thing I want to say is I feel like we should make sure that the owner of the property are signing these applications and variance applications, because there is a lot of fraud going on with people taking rentals, selling them, doing other, you know what I'm saying? So I think that we should make it a habit that the true owner of the property needs to be signing these forms for requests for things that are occurring on their property.
I agree. And then the answer versus also the process. Sometimes you find things you didn't know. I know there was a council member that caught, something where it was actually a duplex, and so there was an issue. So sometimes there's process and it does solve some of the issue.
Is
But I
there-
do understand.
Is there a process, for example, for people that don't feel comfortable speaking in front of a large group of people? Thankfully, we don't have a large group of people tonight, or people that don't speak English, or any number of issues that, you know, as a special education teacher, I see speech issues all the time. Is that something we're gonna accommodate for?
So my answer is they can either come in person or they can actually be online and they can actually speak. So the answer is yes, they actually do. But they don't have to do anything they don't want to do.
But they're not gonna get
Give
the,
themselves the best opportunity.
And they can designate a person, which in my mind, they have to put someone down here to be able to answer to complaints, respond. So it's sort of like if they can't even show up to do that, like how's a person gonna be?
No, I think if it's an invasive thing, then they shouldn't be doing business in the first place. The whole point of this, in my opinion, is to make sure that people are renting places out and safe places out. Presentable enough, that's to each his own. The faded paint job is not really as an aesthetic thing, as long as your windows aren't cracked and it looks like something that some rent, price margin or not, that's personal preference as well. But I think the whole process of letting them come in here and say, this is what we're trying to do, we're gonna give them the best recommendations to let them have the freedom to do that, but do professionally. Make sure it's, you know, when you are making income on the property, you can have more, put it back on the property so it can continue to make income. But a paint job, we're gonna seal, you know, important things. The fire marshal sure will give them safety things, but there's also electrical things, and make sure the GSCIs are correct. Just for, you know, we don't want to be responsible for approving something that gets burned out, you know, or electrical fire, but I would assume if they're pulling the permits, they're doing their due diligence anyways.
Well, and I will say from our purview standpoint, it's more along the lines of, does this meet the specifications or with the rules we have in place? And I think this one does.
absolutely.
Do we have any motions here?
I make a motion to approve the short-term rental.
Exactly.
Any discussion?
Yeah, do we have people that can respond to the short-term rental? Does that come into play? What we talked about, things I didn't know.
Yeah, we can respond. They can require a phone number to contact them.
Yeah, you look at that map, they're supposed to have someone to respond to any kind of complaints or.
But I think it's concern about the short-term rental is being able to respond if somebody next door that wants a short-term. Planning commission, the city council, and say, I don't want them to have that.
Yes, that's what it's being used for.
In this case, she lives next door. Right? So she is the neighbor.
But I'm not, let's talk about it. I'm talking about people. Neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what this means for, and I think that's right there, our vision and ordinance would kind of control that person. Any other discussions? All in favor? Recommendation over.
So we have one of those. What we could do too, regarding, Marissa's comment is I see that y'all do send a letter out to the applicants, Warren, if you potentially could add at the bottom if they have any questions about how the public meeting is handled or building a translation, that way they could call you before the meeting.
Okay.
Maybe just a short word like that with a.
This is the only thing on that construction before we have people people sending letters because they couldn't be here or didn't want to stand in front of somebody.
And we had a batch that didn't come at all, but they also had no, neighbor complaints.
Right.
Remember that batch that came through?
Yeah, I mean, I think the board does such a great job of kind of
Yeah.
explaining information in a very thoughtful way, and if there's questions we have, then normally we can ask them, but if they're not here, then we can typically answer the
Yeah.
question, so. I don't think there's technically a huge issue with the process, that kind of the city wanted in terms of having this communication. Okay, so approval of the minutes from April 3rd, I don't think I've seen those.
I don't know either.
It was, I was on vacation.
Was it
It was
Lori?
last month,
Yeah.
April 5th.
No, we didn't, what are we in June?
You do not have one in May.
Yeah, we did have one in May, no.
I think
The
it
April
was
3rd.
Lori that took.
It might have been. Okay, so we want to table those on the board. Okay. Do we have a motion to table?
I make a motion to table the minutes from April 3rd.
I'll second.
All in favor? That's it, okay. Okay, so now we're going to discuss the application for new commissioners. I think everybody's got the stack that we printed out for us.
And I found the portion you were asking about.
Okay.
It says on 2.3 of the blanket code for chapter 9, which is UBC, this is the newest one. Planning and Zoning Commission shall be comprised of 7 commissioners, which shall include a chair, who are appointed by the city council. 3 voting commissioners shall be residents of the city of Blanco or its ETJ. 2 voting members may live outside the city limits and so long as they own businesses or employed within the city limits of Blanco or its ETJ. And number 3, the 2 voting members may not live outside the city limits so long as they live in Blanco County.
Mine is old and not updated, so appreciate that. Okay, so we've got all 5 of these applications. Do y'all want to go through one at a time, or do we just want to read through it, kind of talk about your thoughts?
I'm just really surprised nobody showed up to say anything because he was.
I will say Candy did show up, she left, she had a animal emergency or something, she had to go, but.
I want to interview them.
Do you want to interview them?
Well, yeah, because, what are their opinions? Are they flexible? Are they closed-minded? If they can't show up for an interview that reflects, how good are they gonna prep for the meeting? I mean,
So
I interviewed, when I got on the board, we interviewed the ones that didn't show up. Of course, they weren't selected, but I don't want to just pick someone because they lived here 50 years if they're, don't prep, closed-minded, I think it's important to interview them.
So this is what I'll say. I don't disagree with you at all. Council can look at your recommendations or not recommendations or no recommendation yet, if no one's here, and they can decide to select somebody or not select somebody. The only issue is if there are no names that go to city council next week, then you'll only have 5 members next month. That's all I'm saying.
Which is still a quorum for us.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm okay with that. I'm just letting you know what, if you don't decide to make any recommendations down and council agrees with that recommendation, then you'll have 3 members. 4 for 4. Okay.
Well, when are you gonna be, is this it?
No, I don't know. Because I don't want to just say go, maybe no.
His term expires,
This month, right?
I think it's this month.
Okay.
I think it's this month. So,
We can vote to keep Loris on until, we find a replacement.
I don't think so. I don't know for sure, but I don't.
I just don't think he wants to. I think he's.
I know,
for
but
years
he's
and
so
years.
loyal and he's such an asset to the.
Well, the whole reason I got on was because I didn't have quorum. And so I got on it. I've been on it for 7 or 8.
Why can't, it's only Monday, if you're interviewing for a job, you're ready, whenever they call you to interview, why can't you? The y'all not want to meet up here for 1 hour and interview these people at the end of the week?
I think it's easy enough.
I mean, for me, I don't know a lot of these people, and I feel like just people that have been here forever get picked, but what if they never prep for meetings? They have no thought of any kind of growth ever happening, and then, you know, it's sort of like, I don't know.
I agree.
This is not actually meeting, it's possible.
I understand, Lloyd.
But if you have any problems with the income, which I don't think is high. But you got enough to- So I will leave.
Fair enough.
I mean, it's a 2-year selection form too.
So,
So how many spots are going to be open?
There are two. Hines already left, and Morris Perkins, this is his last meeting.
Okay, and so Andrew, you want for a 2-year?
Yep.
Okay, because I was told you was to fill it.
I could do an interview, but I think I've interviewed myself by being loud and talking around the town, so.
Okay, so I just didn't know.
I'm okay with not rushing the process, because, you know, we got the email Saturday, we're having this meeting, and got the stuff this morning. That's fine, I was able to change my plans and do it, but I don't see why we couldn't get at least most of them together for 30 minutes to an hour. You know, I know a couple of them, I've been here almost 18 years, I know, well, I can't know all of them, but don't know them all well. I'll just have a quick chat, and definitely prove it, in my opinion.
okay, so y'all's opinion would basically be table this, try to get a meeting within the next few days, real quick, sit down.
Yeah,
That's something that's possible.
So you have to, it has to be 72 hours notice, so what we could do is try to have a meeting for next Monday.
Okay.
It used to meet on Mondays anyway, right? So
So can we do a special meeting, say for 30 minutes to interview them, like say 10 minutes a person, and then do a closed meeting to where we can discuss them and then vote on who we're gonna pick versus.
I don't need to have an executive session.
That's what I would.
Yeah, I want to give everybody a fair shot.
Let me text the attorney right now. I'm pretty sure you can do. I've never, in all the years that I've been a planning director, just never had an executive session for planning.
We're important.
And I think you can.
I think it's important, it's a volunteer position, and you don't have a lot of time, so you really want them to take it really seriously enough. And in my opinion, the education and all that really, it helps here and there, but it's more just who the person is, how it helps them.
And also their understanding of things, because if they don't understand what things mean and the impact, it's sort of hard for them to make a very viable vote on stuff.
Y'all are certainly good to go, if y'all like, y'all don't have to stay for the whole meeting. We already sent city council and fire city council for approval.
We just weren't sure, but thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll be hearing from you.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay, and if he doesn't respond in the next minute or so, I'll.
So do we want to go to the next item and then come back to this?
Yeah.
Do that.
Okay, so discussion and consider to take action on appointment of P and Z commission officer positions, chair, vice chair, and secretary. So we need to re-elect officers for this next 2 years or 1 year. Which goes
I
along.
think it's 1 year.
Okay.
So I have to nominate you chair, right? That's what we're all doing?
You don't have to do anything you don't want to do.
That's what I,
Yeah,
that's what I want to do.
and I would second that, because I think you keep the meetings moving, you don't have a lot of fluff in there, like you get to the point, so I think you've done a good job since you've been in the seat.
You want to stay chair?
I'll do. Don't have a real preference. Okay, any other opinion on this?
I'll make the motion that, Brandon remains the chair of the planning and executive.
Okay, We need to select the vice chair. Anybody got thoughts?
I'll be the vice chair.
Perfect, all right. Anybody else second that one?
Second.
All right. And then we do need to decide on the secretary. I would, well, if you could keep doing it.
Well, I thought about it, I was like, I should try to give it to someone else and let that share the wealth, but I mean, I just sort of getting in the sink of the.
You do so good.
But I
It's
started,
perfect.
the first like 3 months, I was writing down too many like comments that weren't important for it, so yes, I would do the secretary again.
So we're all in agreement on this?
How's our budget looking?
Hold on. And, okay, so I'm gonna go to the next thing while we're still waiting on Warren. I had asked that they add,
Do we need to vote on that?
sure, okay, I guess we'll just do all three at once. All in favor?
So I can make an overall motion, you want me to?
Yeah.
I make the motion that Brandon, Carlson would be the chair, Julie would be the vice chair, and then you'll be secretary.
Second.
All in favor? On it, Wilson. Okay, so I had asked them to bring up these ordinance. I have had countless conversations with people about, one, how convoluted it is, how long it is, how complicated it is. And I got an email a while back from Hines because of a vote that had gone through us to city council for a electronic sign, but then got denied. He had highlighted some parts of the EDC that he want to change, and my thought was, I don't think we should change certain parts of it. I think if we're going to change something, we should look at the whole thing and look at it from a standpoint of what do we want 10 years down the road. I'm assuming most everybody hasn't read it or read it recently, so we've got copies. My main thing is I wanted everybody to get a chance to read it, drive around town, see what you like, see what you don't like, and let's address this and then round up for what we think potential look like long term. What are y'all's thoughts?
I did both. I read it and
Right.
did anybody else get a chance to do that?
Yes. I've read it 6 or 7 times and I'd still be confused on parts of it.
Okay.
It's, yeah.
Because there were some things in it that I thought, well, that's dumb.
Well, and one question I did have, I know, this sign ordinance applies to everything outside of the historic district, right? Not the historic district itself.
There's a historic section.
But the historic commission has its own set of rules, correct? And we could lose our historic designation if we don't follow those rules.
Right, the historic district has their own rules, they're actually stricter
Right.
than this.
They
Right.
have them all set.
Yeah.
Right, so this does not apply to the square, it applies to everyone else.
That's correct.
And that's actually just a recommendation anyway, so they don't have to. The historic commission on that, but it's a highly recommended. And the city usually goes along with it.
Right, well, the same thing with planning and zoning. We make our recommendations and the city is going to do their due diligence and make decisions based on what they think makes the most sense. But yes, I mean, theoretically, this is the rest of the city, not the same district. So that's,
Except for the 281 overlay, then would circumvent this.
Right,
For that district.
yes.
So we would have the historic district, the 281 district, and this would be everybody else.
Right.
well, but I think whatever we decide makes sense on here, if it's passed by city council, then we would also put that into the overlay as well. So I mean, I think the big picture, and even the conversation on the overlay is what do we want these sign ordinance to look like? Whether we fix it here or fix it there, wherever it seems like it's not something that at this point is well organized. So I figured if y'all want to discuss it more right now, we certainly can. If y'all want to take them up to read through it, look, I know it was short notice, we only got the agenda, so wanted to give everybody the opportunity to think about it.
Can you share what Heinz's concern were?
It wasn't necessarily concerns, it was basically taking the sign ordinance and changing the words in it. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Okay, so to sum it up, what it says is suggested new wording to replace the old one, so electronic changeable copy signs, non-governmental, shielded or unshielded. And so basically he took what was in there, deleted some parts, rewrote some stuff in red that was directed towards electronic signs. And I think it was mostly related to the vote that we had done, city council had done on that church. And so they were trying to make it, city council had suggested we shouldn't make exceptions outside of the sign ordinance. If we don't agree with it, then we should probably change it. So they had talked about changing one portion. My thought is I don't think we should change one portion because somebody asked about it. If we're going to change it, let's talk about that. So his was specifically looking at electronic signs, but I think there's a lot more in here to look at.
So we have 2 new electronic signs now that you see traveling south on 281. The new liquor store and Apache have now put up 2 of those electronic signs
Those are
side by
expensive,
side.
so.
Yeah,
No, but it gives you a good visual of what those signs look like when there's more than one and they start to pile up and they're flashing. I voted for the church because to me the church made sense. They had the ability to lower the light, and because they can't use those little letters because they blow off in the wind. But actually, when you do look at those 2 signs down there south of 281, now to me they sort of look junky.
Well, I think the overarching conversation on that though was if we approve it there, would we then have to approve it for the other churches along 281? And if that happens, then there's not 1, there's 7 others. And then at what point does it become the new policy, not the one-off?
I agree.
so why didn't they come back and ask for a variance? Like if the council's saying, well, it's not in the rule, like you can't, so couldn't the church come back and ask for a variance? That's what they were asking.
Yes.
So they were asking
It was
for a variance, not just an
The
approval.
thing is, in my mind, a variance, even though you give someone a variance, you just allow that for
Yeah,
everybody.
it's hard.
So
to pick
it's
favorites.
sort of like what we have with storage containers, you know, everybody should be able to now put those in front of their property. So to me, you gotta be careful
Yeah, I
of the
agree with that.
variances, because, well, but you gotta allow for everybody that wants them then.
I disagree with that.
Yeah.
Like you said, that for the church, it made sense. Like it's
It did.
already in front of the high school. There's not, any residences right there that it's going to affect. They could lower it, the lighting on it. I mean, there's that, I feel like was just a special use of an electronic sign, and a variance could have been granted for that. Rather than El Agave wanting to put their margarita specials out. That's totally different. I mean, that's, right when we're driving in town, they're not gonna wanna dim the light because they're gonna want people to see it, I think that variances are there for special use.
I do think variances get a kind of bad name. I think variances are one of the best tools we have to then have standardized ruling, and then for things that make complete sense, then we make the exception, which allows us to not do it for everyone. But I do understand people think, well, once you've done one, you have to do more. I don't necessarily agree, but I think variances as a whole aren't something that we necessarily should shy away from, but use them in the right circumstances when they should be used. So, anyways, do y'all want to talk any more about this? Or my thought was just take it home, look at it for a month, glance at it, try to wrap your head around what you think makes sense. Maybe highlight some stuff or rewrite some stuff, whatever you have time for. But I do think that 29 pages of this that is hard to read, no matter how many times you read it, probably isn't the best way we can do it.
34 pages.
Yeah, that one's 34.
Well, let me ask you,
Small type.
is this what we're trying to replace with another booklet this big, or can it be basically going off of recommendations where we know that you have to get a permit to do any kind of signage? Can it really just be each time someone wants a sign, if we just base off our recommendations of what they're asking for?
The hard part about that is this commission is always going to be changing, and you're basically going to have different opinions every time, and so different things will get approved.
Right here, most people are looking at this and say, well, is it 20 foot off of this thing that goes with the EMS, or is it this, or is it, too bright? And it's just so complicated. I think you're gonna get more people that aren't gonna come and ask these stuff and start slapping stuff up.
I don't
Yeah.
disagree with that. I think some sort of ordinance that's written out makes sense. If we could get it to be much shorter, that would be great.
Yeah.
Something that's more easily understood or comprehensible.
But if you get light, the whole light thing, and especially, for instance, Candy Cargill, let's just say her office was a house. And Honda Way or in Texas had a bright in there and you're trying to sleep, I can understand, but all the signs that I've seen that have been up, as bright as they are, I'm able to see the business better. And most people don't have security lights, so actually it kind of lights up the property, gives a little more purpose of, oh, that's, you know, a property and someone, you know, at night too, it's more of a security thing. I like the light.
Yeah, I think as long as there's not strolling or strobing.
Right.
Changing pictures, you know, if it's one constant thing that gives you the ability to electronically change it. I'm not necessarily opposed, but
Yeah, maybe if you don't want to splash. So,
I have a few questions on it. I don't know, did you read it to where you can answer it or?
Ask the question, I'll say it like me.
Okay, so one of them for regulated signs is, concession trailers. So I know that concession trailers are regulated to get a permit to be in the city.
Yes.
Are you doing something with the sign too? Are you looking at their signs? Are you charging them extra for the sign on the concession too with the permit?
So the answer is, when they do the permit, we're looking at the sign. But I'll be honest with you, I'm probably not going to every food truck to make sure that they comply with the sign. I mean, that's, but at the time, yes, we're looking at the sign.
Oh, you are? And then I have another question about the banner over 281. So in the city, can we limit who can put up a banner within the city limit? Because it doesn't specify, it just says you can have a banner over 281. PEC's got to put it up, but it didn't say who can put up a banner. It didn't say it was only limited to the Historic Society or the government, you know, or a festival, but in other words, anybody could come put up a sign that maybe had a political statement and run it across 281 downtown.
well, let's backtrack on that because it does say that PEC has to be the ones to put it up. They're not gonna put anything up anyway. Which is why we won't have them regardless, because they're not allowing signs to be put on the poles. So I don't think it'd be a bad idea to find a way to allow our community to have signs, especially things that say like Lively Festival or
Yeah,
something that says, you know, wild game dinner, like things that are,
I think that should be
Good for our town.
defined.
Yes.
It's too vague in here. It almost says anybody can go put up a sign across 281 downtown. So I would like to see that little section defined a little more. Who, what.
well, let's do this. Let's take a month in your
Okay.
small free time. If you can cross things out, draw some little notes. I'll try to compile some good ideas for the next meeting and then go from there.
Just, well, I think the last thing that I had is, this came up before when we discussed the overlay signs, which are gonna be monument signs. Which personally, I like monument signs, but, and about the damage to the sign, that was a big discussion of ours. If it's damaged, they can't afford to fix it, they just wanna put it back like it is. So my only comment on that is if someone did damage your sign, a car or property damage, one of those two insurers would pay for replacement of the sign, which then could put the sign back to the new code. So there's a section in here that you might want to look at too.
Yes, and a good example is if you look at Rainbird, they had a monument sign up by the street, and 18-wheeler or something drove through, went into the building, took down the sign. They couldn't rebuild that sign in the same footprint because it didn't meet code anymore. So if you go by, they don't have a sign out by the street just alongside the building. It makes it really hard to see what it is. So I think we should try to look at more moving parts on that as well.
Yeah, that little section. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. One question I did have when I was looking at this earlier, on side companies that are putting up happy graduation, happy birthday. Are they considered prohibited signs under portable signs?
I think that'd be those are temporary signs.
Not portable. I'm just thinking about when we revisit this.
Okay.
How, I mean, that's a big business, people's business and livelihoods. I just want to make sure that we're addressing
And
that.
I'll have to look at it a little closer, but I think it was something which, I think it's a temporary.
It's considered temporary, not portable.
So if you're talking about graduation signs, they're usually like bandit signs, what they really are.
I'm talking about big massive ones that go across an entire
Would
property.
they take each letter and they
Oh,
put
yeah.
each letter in the yard copy? or
I did that for my
like
kid too.
Yes. This is how ridiculous it is.
Well, that's better than ours. You know, see,
But I look at the county, so, yeah, we'll have to look at that, because I'm putting me on the spot, I'm not sure exactly how we, honestly, I just have not ever addressed that. You see that, it's only on for a couple of weeks. or
Right,
months,
right.
You know, there's not, it's not like it's not like a feather sign that keeps showing up, you know, these feather signs, and I will actually call those folks and get them taken down where I see them. But, because that's kind of like just keeps happening, but these
Sure.
graduation signs, usually don't. But we need to address that. you know.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If we're gonna do it, let's do it right and make sure we're.
But I had that thought too, like, someone's very, it's like no residential. Welcome home.
Yeah.
But they need a permit for it, correct? So it's just to put up and everything.
No,
For
that's a,
sure, I think the issue you run into more and more is, how do you regulate appropriate? It's like, welcome home veteran is fine, but you could have much worse things.
With the time period. Yeah.
Yeah, I know in 2017, I got a grand opening sign for the gym, and as I was stabbing it in there, Norman Fox came and legitimately grabbed my hand and said, stop, and I came in. But you can't get a permit, and sure enough, I went to the city, paid $25 for a weekend permit. I thought it was crazy, because that's private property, but it wasn't, you know, it is what it is. I think, but the reason, just keep looking at people on here that aren't so legalistic about it. Changes that.
Okay, so let's take the next one, look through it, do the best we can to come up with some simplifying ideas, we'll go from there. Did you hear anything back from Tim?
It did. Okay, so you want to go to that. The answer is for a deliberation on who you want to make for recommendation for planning commission, you cannot go in executive session. So we have two options. One option is for on Monday to interview them or talk to them and then make a decision and deliberate. Or, that's maybe what you want to do, or maybe in the next few days, you have 2 or 3 people, whatever's not a quorum, you can have 4, maybe you select 3 people on and actually interview these folks privately. And I'll make sure that the backroom here is available for that. And then that group of 2 or 3 commissioners can make a recommendation on Monday, then y'all will just make a decision. And so if you don't, if you want to have a little bit of privacy on the recommendation, you can do it the other way, which is have 2 or 3 people interview them separate. So you can do the first option, which is bring them in and everybody gets to hear as an open process, and then you make a decision of who you want to do, or you can select a couple of people to do the interviews private. That is the advice of the attorney. But not executive session, because generally that is not a lot of executive sessions, usually real estate or contracts and that sort of stuff.
Thoughts?
I mean, I think it'd be easier to have them all come on Monday versus having them to be separate, different day, you know what I'm saying? And then people working unless they're gonna be coming. I don't know.
I could anyway,
Then we
it's
have
a
to
little
vote.
awkward talking about.
Yeah, then we have to vote in front of them.
I'm good, whatever you want to do.
I say Monday.
You too.
And vote in front of them, and discuss it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a decision has to be made and it needs to be made, you know, not out of emotion.
Yeah.
But for who we really truly think would benefit the city, so. Okay.
No, I think we need 2 right now.
Pardon?
Out of the 5 applicants, or there's 5 applicants.
5.
2 of them.
Yes, I get to. Okay. Andrew, your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess just put the elephant in the room, you know.
Okay.
I can give my recommendations. I know most of the people include I recommend, but I'll look up.
Okay.
doing that.
I mean, unless y'all feel y'all don't want to interview them, I'm not gonna lie.
No, I have to, because I
Oh, you
have
do,
never
okay,
had a conversation with any of these people.
yeah, okay.
Can we get them to come an hour early before the meeting? Or is the meeting just for us?
The meeting's just.
Oh,
It's
before
for
the
us.
interview.
We should be able to sit out here and talk to all of them, all one goes back there, and I don't know.
Well, there won't be anybody going back there. It's.
You have a quorum, so you're gonna have to just talk to them like you did with the applicant.
Right.
And then they'll sit down and say, they'll all hear the conversation, or you have, like I said, 2 or 3 committee members of this meet. You can do that. If you're gonna do this, then anybody gets to listen.
I like the idea of, because it's so many people, I think it's a social kindness.
Do it privately.
And have a committee, so to speak, that.
Can we legally all hear from them here on Monday and then us go back there for 10 minutes?
No, that's exactly.
Exactly, we can't do
You
everything.
cannot,
Got it.
I do like that too,
Yeah, we can do that.
because, my thought was one person could hear another person and piggyback off of that, and that was never their intention. I like the private meeting to really just kind of get their true, answers to questions.
But now on a private meeting, when we circuit, if we're all doing questions for an interview, like how are those interview answers going to be circulated before a Monday vote? So you can actually view when it's said.
Well, what he's basically saying is 3 people would sit down with all 5 of them separately, and then those 3 people would come in front of us and they, hey, we interviewed them, we recommend these 2. Here's my problem, this person, here's my problem, however you want to do it.
so either way, we're gonna have to let myself, the city secretary, we'll call all 5 people. So if the answer is you just want to do it all on Monday, then we'll let them know, show up on Monday, and then they'll have to answer some questions, and then they'll make a decision. Or if the answer is you really want to be a small group, then we'll contact them and say, hey, I don't know if you guys want to meet on Wednesday or Thursday, but you just tell me when you want to meet, or we'll try to make it happen. And then they may want to meet, they want to meet twice. So obviously, the people that, again, if you interview them, they may still show up on Monday, which is their right.
I think they both have pros and cons. So,
But at the end of the day, the city council is the one making the decision.
yeah.
So we're putting a lot of effort into, something that they're going to be voting on.
Sure.
Well, I think a lot of the city council members attend our meeting either in person or on Zoom and our conversation.
Any other discussion on this one?
My question is, what did you do? Who interviewed you, or?
He was appointed as a replacement.
Yeah, well, Brandon's talked to me quite a bit. Other people that have been on it that are leaving said you should try. I voiced my, okay, I'm willing to help out. I never pursued it. I don't know, I got lucky, I guess. I need one more thing to add to my
So,
to-do list.
so if somebody leaves in the middle of the term, I think then it goes to council to replace them versus if it's a new opening, then it comes to us for suggestion. Maybe we should just interview all of them and just tell us who thinks of replacing them.
I like that idea.
All right, do we have any,
Who wants to make a motion on that? Because I know you 2 are, because I would like to interview too, that's the thing, then who gets to interview?
I mean, I'm happy with them just all coming Monday, and then when we go to vote, for me, I'll just vote yes or no. I'm not gonna elaborate
Okay,
on myself. I'm open to whatever you want to do.
that's that one way or another?
I'll make a motion to have a special meeting on Monday to interview the candidates for PNZ applications.
Okay, so we would just do it all 5 in a row, have discussion, make our suggestion. Okay, do we have a second?
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
And that will be our regular meeting time. 6:30?
That'll depend on.
If that's easy for everybody, that's 6:30.
Uh-huh.
You're always used to from the 6:30 money. So then myself and city secretary will contact all 5 people and take care of that.
Okay. And if they, for some reason, cannot make the meeting, they can send something in, a statement.
They have a statement or they can even be online. if they want.
Okay.
Okay. That's everything we had. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I have motion to adjourn.
Second. All right, let's go. Thank you guys for coming.